The Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte, the bad boy, has done some pretty crazy stuff throughout his presidency, like calling the Rocket Man his idol. During the presidential poll debate in 2016, he promised to personally ride a jet ski and plant the Philippines flag at the Spratly Islands or Scarborough Shoal, defying the Chinese. But after the elections, he was like, seriously? That was a joke. For heaven's sake, you must be stupid to believe I would really do that. Duterte is a volatile man, and he has derailed his country's China policy. But Duterte is nearing the end of his presidential term, and with his imminent ouster, the Philippine defense establishment is getting serious about the China threat. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I am your host, Sanbir Ranhotra, and in this video, I will tell you how the Philippines defense establishment is arming itself with Indian missiles and South Korean ships with the sole purpose of taking on China. Let's begin. When does a leader go crazy? I mean, when can a leader really obfuscate national security due to personal ambitions? Well, it's the final months of power when the leader knows that he has nothing to lose. Philippine president retires in May, and he is doing some really crazy stuff like roping in a Chinese state-owned telecom company to acquire a 40% stake in a major Filipino network provider. Duterte is paving the way for China to colonize the Philippines. But the defense establishment of the Philippines hates Beijing, and it is doing what it can to match up to the China threat. Now, it has made two big moves, buying South Korean frigates and a cruise missile from India. India and the Philippines are said to be in an advanced stage of negotiations over the sale of BrahMos, a medium-range ramjet supersonic cruise missile. The missile is one of the most advanced weapons systems that can be launched from ships, mobile launchers, submarines, and aircraft. It is one of the fastest supersonic cruise missiles in the world. India's Defense Research Development Organization, or DRDO, and BrahMos Aerospace, which is an Indo-Russian aerospace and defense company, have been pushing hard to export this missile to friendly foreign countries. Meanwhile, the Philippines has also ordered two new warships from South Korea's Hyundai Heavy Industries in a $556 million deal with the South Korean shipbuilding giant. The corvettes will be delivered by 2026. Corvettes and frigates are small, fast warships that protect other vessels from being attacked. Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana said this project will give the Philippine Navy two modern corvettes that are capable of anti-ship, anti-submarine, and anti-air warfare missions. This is exactly the kind of military hardware that the Philippines needs. At the end of the day, the Chinese don't bring in their big aircraft carriers to intimidate others in the South China Sea. It is the Chinese Coast Guard and fishing militia that use small vessels to bully others, and the Philippines is buying the kind of corvettes that can take down such Chinese vessels. If Duterte had his way, the Philippines would have got reduced into a Chinese client state. But guess what? The Philippine military decided to save the country. Military officials in the Philippines hate China over how it took over the Scarborough Shoal and is now looking to take over Whitsun Reef, another disputed region between Beijing and Manila in the South China Sea. Philippine military officers treat China as an enemy should treat an enemy. In October last year, the Philippine Navy decided to send over 200 militiamen to the West Philippine Sea to execute patrols and protect fishermen who have long been harassed by encroaching Chinese forces. Here too, the initiative was taken by the Philippine Navy and not the president. The Philippine defense establishment has saved the country time and again. Duterte had sent a letter to the US last year expressing his willingness to terminate the Philippines-US Visiting Forces Agreement. This move meant that Duterte was abandoning the US for China. But in July this year, Rodrigo was forced to retract his statement under the pressure from the military establishment. Duterte may be acting like a Chinese stooge, but the Philippine defense establishment remains close to the United States of America. After a tussle with the Chinese Coast Guard in November, the Philippine defense establishment reminded China how public vessels are covered by the Philippines-United States Mutual Defense Treaty, and that a mere miscalculation on China's part could spark a bigger military standoff in the region with the involvement of the US and other like-minded countries. The Philippine defense establishment knows that Duterte is on his way out and that it has the freedom to take matters into its own hands. Duterte may have ruined the Philippines' economic security, but the military has maintained Manila's defense autonomy. After Duterte, however, a China hawk could come to power as the president of the Philippines. With this, Manila could soon replicate anti-China aggression in its economic policy too.